correct. So I had to make an urgent video. Though we are not accustomed to making of videos, we have to, do our things only through written and spoken words. Day by day, my realization becomes stronger that the economic illiteracy remains the highest security threat to India. Economic illiteracy continues to be the highest national security threat and challenge to India. People may quote poverty, etc. as rubbish. Poverty is not a problem. Inequality is not a problem. Unemployment is not the problem. But economic illiteracy remains the topmost national sovereignty threat to India. Economic illiteracy remains the highest threat to security and sovereignty of India. The illiterates who know even not the ABC, read something from the coaching institute's notes, some YouTuber, now suddenly they started teaching also. Now, what is the example of economic illiteracy? When the macroeconomic parameters are stable, then you quote some microscopic crisis or a small problem as superseding the entire macroeconomic parameters. When microeconomic parameters are stable, then you simply quote one macroeconomic problem to depict or to give your illiterate mind a sense that the economy is in crisis, Indian economy is in crisis. When Indian economy, both at micro as well as macro parameters, performing at its peak, then some illiterates picked up from some streets, they suddenly start speaking that India is in crisis. This is the peak of illiteracy. The worst thing is that the young minds are being fed poison. If one is honest about knowledge, the minimum thing one should do is to give proportionate weightage to micro and macro, particular and universal, particular and general. Don't pick up one. For example, somebody says that retail inflation has reached at 7%. And that's why inflation is very high. This is a rubbish and high-class illiteracy. Newspapers and the channels, they can quote or they can write or advocate broadcast that retail inflation is high. But what about other types of inflation, the most important being wholesale inflation? So when overall inflation parameters are stable and the lowest, then it is only high-class illiteracy that one can say that retail inflation, which is so seasonal, in this duration of monsoon, tomato is not grown, and that's why tomato can start selling at 100 rupee kg or maybe 150 rupee kg. Does that define the whole economy? Similarly, one illiterate or maybe many illiterates simply saying that India is not doing at par with China. How dare you to compare? Do you know the history of India and China? Do you know the economic history of India and China? If when India is growing at 7%, China is growing at 5%, how dare you say China is superior to India? Do you have any idea of the economic history of India? So this illiteracy comes from high class laziness, those who do not have intellectual pursuit and patience and perseverance and capacity to work hard and read. कहीं से न्यूज़ में से एक लाइन उठा लिया और उसको started vomiting. This is the problem of this country. The greatest threat to India is economic illiteracy. At this stage, I am not in a position to explain because this is not my format. My format is to speak for 3 hours, 5 hours. Unless I get that format of 5 hours, I cannot explain in detail how economic illiteracy continues to be and remains the greatest threat now. Infiltration, drugs, etc., they are secondary and tertiary threat. Economic illiteracy, the illiteracy that students, the children, the young generation are being fed, that has become number one sovereignty threat to India. Unless one is thorough in fundamentals of economics, history of economics, comparative economics, global economics, it's my request to students that please stop this bullshit. Stop your teachers. Read Economic Times every day minimum. Stop eating food. खाना छोड़ दो, इकोनॉमिक टाइम्स पढ़ो. जो भी इंडियन इकोनॉमी का गलत डिपिक्शन करता है उसका गर्दन पकड़ के निकाल के फेंको. होल्ड देम बाय देयर नेक. उनके गले में हाथ लगा के पूछो, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड इकोनॉमिक्स? तुम्हें क्या मैक्रो और माइक्रो का प्रोपोर्शनेट रिलेशन समझ में आता है? एक स्पेसिफिक प्रॉब्लम को एक जनरल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में और एक जनरल इशू को स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में समझने आता है? अगर इंडियन इकोनॉमी का गलत इंटरप्रिटेशन किया, इंडिया विल गो बैक 30 years, go back again. India is fortunate to have the rightest set of economic policy. The newspapers and some YouTubers, illiterates, ABC do not know. These people are spreading venom and poison. Start reading Economic Times. 4 months of Economic Times reading will make you what this illiterates are spreading, the lies and canard and venom and poison. Stopping this canard has become the greatest security requirement of India. I will explain in some other video how to understand the economy of India at present. From 10th economy in the world in 2014, it has come to 5th level, and if measured on purchasing power parity, then it is third largest economy. This is a general characterization. If it is true, then how come a small negative thing can compare with this overall scenario? So this overall scenario is strong, then how come should you depict Indian economy in its overall context, or you should pick up a small issue? When Forex has doubled in 10 years, should this be an issue, or $1 billion withdrawn from Forex, that should be an issue? If inflation is historic low, then that should be an issue, or a seasonal retail inflation in picking up, that should be an issue. If remittance and FDI is at all-time high, that should be the issue. or some small issue should be the issue. So if macroeconomic parameters are doing excellent, how dare one say Indian economy is in problem? If similarly, sometimes micro parameters are strong, despite some macro parameters going down, how does one dare to say micro and macro means your cells are strong, micro. Macro means your body is good. Sometimes your cell is very strong, but ऊपर से बाहर से body weak दिखती है, but cell is powerful. Immunity is so strong. जब बाहर से बीमारी दिख रही है वो secondary है, momentary है. Similarly, body from outside is macro. Maybe some cells sometime become weaker, maybe platelets down हो जाए, but overall body strong है. You will bounce back, you will come back. The illiterates, what do is they don't understand how to relate micro and macro, cell and body. Illiteracy, economic illiteracy, the greatest threat to sovereignty of India. Economic Times, 6 months. Study Economic Times, 6 months. Spread this masses. Stop taking food. But don't stop reading Economic Times. The only thing that can save India is the rightest depiction of Indian economy that is possible in Economic Times only. Hindu, Indian Express, these papers are canard machines. They are funded. Their only one point agenda is political agenda, electoral agenda. Stop this canard.